Exceptions under judicial interpretations. We have seen earlier statutory provisions. Now it is judicial interpretation. Judicial interpretation means judgments given how they deal. Trade combinations. To regulate the business or to fix the price are not void, but the trade combinations which tend to create monopoly and which are against the public interest are void. For example, you have a cement business, you have another cement business which are big, then you combine both of them, then the combined entity might become a big one. Then public interest is spoiled. So this may be restrained. An agreement among 4 ginning factories to fix uniform rate for ginning cotton and divide the profits in certain proportions is not void, because such agreements is neither restraint of trade or opposed to public policy. So they have uniform rates and they are sharing the profits. An agreement by 2 firms to avoid competition is void because it tends to create monopoly and is against the public interest. I will not fight against you. Means what? It's a monopoly situation. An agreement between certain persons to carry on business with the numbers of their cost only is void. Okay. Within their cost. It becomes a restraint of trade. Outside their cost they could not sell. Example 4. An agreement among some ice manufacturing companies not to sell ice below a minimum price and to divide the profits in a certain proportions is not void. This is similar to the ginning factory example earlier. Because such agreement was made to regulate the business, not to restrain it. Sole dealing agreements means only one person will do. Agreements to deal in the products of a single manufacturer or to sell the whole produce to a single dealer are valid if their terms are reasonable. An agreement by a person to sell all the mica produced by him to the plaintiff and not to any other firm and not to keep any in stock is valid. Selling, I will sell only to the one person, I will not sell it to any person. That is valid. If the terms are reasonable. An agreement by a buyer of a good for Delhi market not to sell them in Kolkata is valid. That is okay because the locality is little distributed. A seller of imitation jewellery in England sold his business to I and agreed not to deal for 2 years. This imitation jewellery is made in England. And also in real jewellery in certain foreign countries. The first promise was held lawful, the second promise was held as void because the restraint was unreasonable, having to the nature. Because first they are selling only imitation jewellery, right? And you are trying to restrain a real jewellery. So that is not valid. Service agreements. A clause in service agreement may or may not be in restraint of trade. Let's see. Service agreement means what? Service agreement, maybe you enter into some business contract with somebody. I will do service of this. Maybe I will work for you on all these conditions. So those things are called service agreement. And there is a clause. There is a clause. Might not be restraint of trade. Let us see what is the nature of the clause. Clause means a point. Basically, in the service agreement, there will be many points. One point is a clause. So, one of these points, whether it is restraint of trade, let us see case by case. A particular point called the clause called serve the employer for a stipulated period. whether it is a restraint of trade, we have to see if agreements are reasonable, do not amount to restraint of trade, and hence are enforceable. Meaning you give salary properly, then conditions are okay, service conditions are okay, work conditions are okay, then this is okay. A clause to prevent an employee from accepting any other engagement during his employment. This is also not restraint of trade, hence are enforceable. Example, doctors employed in government service are usually not allowed to carry on private practice. Trade combinations. To regulate the business or to fix the price are not void, but the trade combinations which tend to create monopoly and which are against the public interest are void. For example, you have a cement business, you have another cement business which are big, then you combine both of them, then the combined entity might become a big one. Then public interest is spoiled. So this may be restrained. An agreement among 4 ginning factories to fix uniform rate for ginning cotton and divide the profits in certain proportions is not void, because such agreements is neither restraint of trade or opposed to public policy. So they have uniform rates and they are sharing the profits. An agreement by 2 firms to avoid competition is void because it tends to create monopoly and is against the public interest. Agreement in restraint of legal proceedings. According to section 28, it is void. Agreements restricting enforcement of rights, agreement limiting the period of limitation, all are void. An agreement by which any party is restricted absolutely from enforcing his legal rights. Legal rights is a fundamental right, right? So you cannot restrict that. A clause in a contract provided that no action should be brought upon in the case of a breach. Such clause is void because it restricts both the parties from enforcing their legal rights. Should be allowed to go to the court. If you are not allowed to go to the court, this agreement is void. So you cannot restrict a person not to take a legal recourse, legal remedy, and legal route. Agreements restricting enforcement of rights. What rights you will see? An agreement between 2 or more persons to refer to an arbitration of any dispute which may arise between them is not illegal. Right? We will go to the arbitrator. There is an agreement. In fact, this is mandatory sometimes. It is not illegal. Why this comes up? Because arbitration is, instead of normal legal route, you are going to somebody else, third party. So that is a kind of restricting legal rights, but since you are agreeing to go to arbitration, third party dispute settlement, that is not legal. That is not illegal. An agreement in writing between 2 or more persons to refer to arbitration any dispute which has already arisen is not illegal. Future is also not okay, is okay. Present also not illegal. Where 2 courts have jurisdiction to try a court suit, an agreement between the parties that the suit should be filed in one court, also not in the other, is not invalid. Suppose you can file a case in Mumbai as well as Calcutta court. For example, normally may not arise. For example, now instead of going and filing in 2 courts, confusing both of us, let us agree, do it in Mumbai only. This is not illegal. Valid. But if you agree to not to appeal in the High Court, then restricting the legal rights. Agreements limiting the period of limitation. You know what is the law of limitation. Any debt which is crossing a period of 3 years or more, so you don't claim it. Something like that. Right? That's under law of limitation. So there is a period already defined in law of limitation. You between yourself, you put another time which is overriding law of limitation is void. So basically it is defeating the provisions of law. Law is saying something and you are agreeing to something, not allowed. A clause in a contract provides that no action should be brought about after 2 years. Such a clause is void because it limits the right of limitation to 2 years, which is less than the period of limitation prescribed by the law of limitation. Uncertain agreement. An agreement, the meaning of which is not certain or capable of being made certain. Such agreements are void. Uncertainty means not clear. You cannot make out anything, head and tail of it. That's called uncertain. These agreements are void. Example 1. A agrees to sell to B 100 ton of oil. There is nothing whatever to show that what kind of oil you are planning. It's an uncertain agreement. A agrees to sell to B 100 ton of oil of a certain description known as an article of commerce. There is no uncertainty here to make an agreement void. Who is a dealer in coconut oil agrees to sell 100 ton of oil. The nature of A's trade affords an indication of the meaning of the words oil as entered into a contract for the sale of 100 tons of coconut oil. A agrees to sell to B all the grain in my granary in Ramnagar. No uncertainty. Ramnagar granary of that particular person A only contains so much. Though, and no uncertainty. Very certain. Very much certain. A agrees to sell to B 1000 mounds of rice. Mounds means kuvial. A heap of rice at a price to be fixed by C. As the price is capable of being made certain, there is no uncertainty here to make an agreement void. C can fix the price. Very clear. A agrees to sell to B my white horse for rupees 500 or 1000. There is nothing to show which of the two prices is to be given. 500 or 1000. There is uncertainty. An agreement to grant a lease when no date of commencement is expressly or impliedly fixed is void because it is not certain when the period of lease shall commence. Without any date, if you say, it's void. A agrees to sell to B 10 tons of Punjab wheat. Price is not indicated. Such agreement is not void because in such a case the reasonable price shall be payable according to section 2 of the Sale of Goods Act. So you have to see this in conjunction with Sale of Goods Act. Even though it's a condition in ICA. X agreed to buy a horse from Y for 5000 rupees and to pay 100 more if the horse proved lucky. Is an uncertain agreement. What is lucky, nobody will know. X agreed to pay 10,000 when he was able to pay. It was held that agreement was void for uncertainty. When he was able to pay, who knows? Right? Uncertain. X agrees to agree in future. Wrong. We already told. Agree to agree in future is faulty, is void.